Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the show. It is going to be exciting as always. It is the Tuesday edition of the show and I hope wherever you are, you're safe. It's a bit rainy here, talking about Lagos, Nigeria. We're coming to you live from our studios at iBrandTV and I'm Samson Olede. Welcome to the show. Let's begin the show. I'm talking about, sports business news at this time. I will start with a bit of hockey for hockey lovers. The NHL salary cap for the 2022-2023 season will be set at $82.5 million, marking the first increase in 3 years. Confirmed by the NHL and NHL Players Association, the increase for next season follows unfavorable profits for the league and its teams due to pandemic-related restrictions. The cap increase represents a $1 million uptick compared to the 2021-2022 season. For the 2022-2023 season, the salary floor for each team will be $61 million. Starting with the 2023-2024 season, the cap could increase by $2 million per year based on hockey-related revenue. Now, the increase comes as Commissioner Gary Bettman claims the league is set to generate record revenue this season, bringing in at least $5.2 billion. During the 2018-2019 season, which is the NHL's last season with a full slate of games, revenue reached $4.6 billion. Now, in the world of football, Spanish second-tier football club Levante have extended their kit supplier partnership with Italian sportswear brand Macron for at least the 2022-2023 season. Macron and the Valencia-based club first agreed a 2-year partnership in 2016 before the club extended the agreement for a further 3 years in 2019. While financial details of the agreement were not disclosed, the previous deal was reportedly worth approximately €900,000 over its duration. The Italian company's partnership portfolio in Spain also includes La Liga outfits Real Sociedad and Real Cadiz, with the Levante deal ensuring Macron retains its status as a brand with multiple deals across the country's top 2 football tiers. Still talking football, Spanish football giants Atletico Madrid remain in talks with several companies over a new naming rights partnership for the club's stadium with financial services company Allianz among the brands linked with a deal. Berlin-headquartered Allianz already has naming rights to the home of German football champions Bayern Munich, as well as the stadium of Italian heavyweights Juventus. Atletico's previous stadium naming rights deal with Chinese conglomerate the Wanda Group, reportedly worth €50 million, expired at the end of the 2021-2022 season. The firm had been the venue's naming rights partner since it opened in 2017, meaning the deal equated to €10 million per season. And finally, when it comes to keeping abreast of the latest sports business news, the London Marathon will remain on BBC Sport after the UK public service broadcaster signed a 5-year broadcast rights extension with the event organizers. The partnership dates all the way back to 1981, with the renewal covering the 2022 race in October and running until 2026. The new broadcast partnership will also see the BBC air other distance running events in the London Marathon events portfolio, such as the Big Half, Vitality London 10,000 and Vitality Westminster Mile. It's on that I say we delve into the world of football right about now, and I'm being joined by Ojo Kayode. Good afternoon, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Samson.
It's good to have you back again
On the show. Thank you very much.
It rained in Lagos, a few minutes ago. It seems like you did magic.
Of course, you have to. You just jump around all of this traffic to meet up with your engagement.
Especially with the fuel scarcity and queues and all of that. I know it must have been challenging getting down here.
We thank God that I'm here.
Thank you so much for the sacrifice. So let's get into it. We'll start with FIFA study. That's again, it's been since yesterday, but that's a big study that has revealed so much. Talking about players from the just concluded African Cup of Nations as well as Euro 2020. About half of them, 55%, the study said, were found to have been abused online, cyberbullying among others. Let me get your initial reaction to that study.
First, we will not take away the fact that the fans have to react to the way they feel when regarding any match.
Yes.
But at least it has to be something that shouldn't go beyond the board. That you have to also put the emotions of these football players into consideration. So many of them went beyond board, calling them all sorts of names.
Yes.
Why? Because they are giving their all for their national team to just make sure that the national team get to a height that they wish they themselves we wish they should get to. So for me, it's out of it. It's out of it for football at all, from any fans to do that to any of the football players.
Talking about the study in question, the two players you just saw on your screen, talking about Bukayo Saka of Arsenal as well as Marcus Rashford of Manchester United. The study found out that they were the ones that are receiving end the most, talking about the players involved. I mean, a competition where you have over 300, 400 players representing different teams. You know, you have 25-man team, and you have probably like 16, 20 teams competing, or 24 teams competing. You now look at the number of players, you know, being targeted. The study said over 55%. So we're looking at over 100 to 120 players being targeted per, you know, competition. And the study just took into cognizance the semi-final and final of these competitions. Looking at this, it's extremely ridiculous that at this stage, you know, of football development, 21st century and all of that, we're still, you know, immersed in issues of racism, homophobic slurs and what have you. How do we get ourselves out of this, really?
Of course, it's going to be difficult for us to get ourselves out. Like you have rightly pointed out, this has been a long thing that has been coming in football, where fans feel they can react the way they want to react, and nobody's going to hold them.
Even up to death threats?
Yes, nobody's going to hold them. You see the issue with Harry Maguire, where one was just threatening him with bombs, with bomb threats. That is way over the board. For me, that's way over the board. And look at what happened to Marcus Rashford and Bukayo Saka. It's too unfortunate.
I mean, they lost penalties. Anyone can lose penalties.
Can lose penalties. Anybody. So the color of your skin should not determine the reactions that you get from the fans. That you are putting your all into it. Anything could have happened to all of those players. Forget the fact that they have a fat paycheck. They put their lives at risk playing football. Because any injury can just sentence them to whichever level you cannot even expect.
Exactly.
And so when all these players are on the field of play, they made a mistake of missing a penalty kick, which of course won't be intentional. And then you start giving them all of these abuses. The same thing in the African Cup of Nations. So we need to make the fans understand that you will be targeted when you are found wanting in all of these things. So it is important that I don't know what the FIFA body is going to do about all of these things. There is need for all of this abuse to be put in check.
Talking about the AFCON, just as you have on your screen right there, for AFCON 2022, there was an Egyptian player that was most targeted. In fact, it was a substitute player. Surprisingly, you know, the final, Egypt lost on penalties to Senegal. But that didn't also, you know, excludes the Senegalese players from being targeted as well. But the Egyptian player that came on as a substitute was the most, targeted for the AFCON competition. Again, it raises questions to you know, issues like this, how fans react. We know quite well that sports generally is an emotional thing. Football definitely generates more emotions, you know, because you want your teams to win. You want the football bands with other teams so as to show, you know, superiority about clubs and all of that, or nations. But when it comes to the mental health of the players, we also need to factor that in. I mean, you've come from the angle of, you know, physical threats, death threats, or bomb, you know, and all of that. But how about their mental health, psychologically? A player has just, you know, played over probably 90 minutes or 120 minutes, lost on penalties. The player is feeling down, and then you go online. The next thing is you find out that you're not the only one being targeted, but even your family members. So how do we address these mental issues that comes with, you know, cyberbullying as well?
Of course, it has to be a personal thing for each of the football players, that they know that this is part of the game. You have to know that when any issues happen, when a mistake occurs, the same thing with Nigerian goalkeeper Okoye.
Yes, Maduka.
Maduka Okoye, who made a mistake.
And it was targeted as well.
It was targeted as well. And I don't know if that's the reason why he has not been appearing in our football matches. You know, it's too bad, because when you look at it on Twitter, especially on Twitter, you know, the guys were just trending for that particular period for some days. And so how can somebody who is sacrificing himself, like I keep mentioning, for his national team, because of that kind of error, then you label him as so many names that cannot be uncalled for. So all these football players, I know they are doing well in terms of managing their
psychologists and all.
So there are psychologists around them, there are physiologists and all that. So they need to understand that this is the reality that they are facing presently in the world of football. And so they have to know how to work on their emotions in managing all of these realities.
Well, let's hope that, you know, these players get the needed care they need, they deserve, rather, when it comes to mental health and psychological issues as well, because they give their all on the field of play, you know, not just for themselves in terms of justifying their paychecks, but also for the delight of fans, you know, who pride in, the results of a club. But to be the target of cyberbullying, it's quite ridiculous. The study found out that most of the abuses online were racial as well as homophobic. So it shows you where we stand, not just as, a football community, but also as people, as humans, that we need to do more across racial and homophobic lines, as it were. But still, talking about this, just as we wrap up from this and move on to the next one, the study also found out that majority of the targets of the abuses came from home nations, their home fans. You mentioned Okoye. Nigerians were the one who, insulted him, not Tunisians who scored. The same thing with the Euros. Your Rashford, your Jadon Sancho, who lost penalty, as well as Bukayo Saka. Coincidentally, all three, are black players. They were also targeted by English fans. So where's the place of fans' sensitization in all of these as well? It's one thing to say players should hold themselves to a high standard in terms of conduct, both on and off the field. But how about the fans?
It's difficult for you to actually curb football fans who have access to their phone that can easily be at the back.
That's true. At
their rooms and begin to tweet whatever they feel. They feel they can tweet. So as much as the supporters club are also doing their best to curb all of this, individual fans cannot be you can't take their own reactions away from them. So we need to the supporters club need to do more by talking to these people that whatever you are, wherever you are, as much as you are for this football club or this country, you have to know that these guys are doing their best.